Hello, my name is Michael Paul Hurd. I am the owner of Lineage Independent Publishing and author of my Lineage series of historical fiction novels. Welcome to the ninth episode of the series. If this is your first time watching us, the entire series is available on YouTube as a sequential podcast and includes two bonus episodes. Individual episodes, including the two bonus episodes, are also available on Facebook, Substack, and Blue Sky. Simply search on Lineage Independent Publishing and you should get the entire series, or use hashtag Lineage Series Podcast. For those of you who have followed these episodes from the start, welcome back, and I thank you for your continued interest. In this podcast, I am going to talk about the setting for Of Time and Place, a Lineage Series novel, which was published in 2023. This episode is recorded, but I still invite you to ask questions or make comments in the appropriate interface on Facebook, YouTube, Substack, or Blue Sky, and I will respond as soon as possible. Of Time and Place is the first novel in the series where I introduced time travel into the storyline. It is also the first where I linked the story to Greek mythology, inspired in part by the Hecate collection of hand-dyed yarns produced by Gems Lux Fibers in Vicksburg, Mississippi. Hecate was one of those all-purpose goddesses whose role was defined both regionally and chronologically. In other words, it depended on when and where you were in history. Shakespeare even mentioned her in three of his works: A Midsummer Night's Dream, King Lear, and in Macbeth's dagger soliloquy. In modern times, she shows up in a variety of pagan rituals. It is her abstract role as guardian of gateways and crossroads that manifests itself in my book. As with the rest of the Lineage series, Of Time and Place provides a fictional account of where my family tree intersects with history. Using that central theme, I expanded the literary content to include a dual timeline, one set in 2015 and the second in the mid-17th century after the Puritans established the Connecticut colony. The main male character, Jonathan Daniel Harris, is a recently retired naval officer with special warfare qualifications. He and his wife Bethany, also a retired naval officer, set sail with another couple on board Jonathan's inherited yacht, the Great Escape. Jonathan disappears after a late-night romantic encounter on the foredeck of the yacht. Bethany stops at nothing to find her missing husband, calling in the Coast Guard to assist with an exhaustive search. I applied personal knowledge to the story at this point, having spent a considerable amount of time on Chesapeake Bay in a fishing boat where we always monitored radio chatter, Coast Guard search and rescue operations included. Jonathan is never found and is declared dead, at least in the current time anyway. His story continues in the mid-1650s when he is rescued by a ship named the Desire, which turns out to be a slaver bound for New Haven, Connecticut, where there was a very busy slave market. Telling you how Jonathan Harris got to the 1650s would be a spoiler. I will tell you, though, that he encounters the brutality of slavery aboard the Desire and again on shore in New Haven, along with other vicious punishments for alleged crimes. For some readers, the graphic descriptions could be trigger points. As the book progressed, my research took some rather interesting turns. Conventional wisdom tends to overlook the fact that slave ownership was at one time just as common in the northern tier colonies as it was in the South. In fact, notables such as Philip Schuyler, Alexander Hamilton's father-in-law, owned slaves, but generally referred to them with euphemisms such as servant. I also discovered that one huge difference between the northern and southern institutions of slavery was that in the South, slave labor was focused on plantations and agriculture. In the North, however, slaves still kept the smaller farms running, but were also rented out by their owners to perform certain tasks, with the money for their labors being collected by their owners. After the Revolutionary War, most of the northern states recognized that slavery was morally reprehensible and gradually outlawed the practice. New Jersey was the last northern state to officially outlaw slavery within its own state constitutional amendment on January 23, 1866, just a little over 6 months after slaves in Texas received their Juneteenth notification. Back in 2015, Bethany Harris discovers she is pregnant, likely as a result of that romantic encounter on the foredeck before Jonathan's disappearance 6 weeks earlier. Because of her age, Bethany was unprepared for the news of her pregnancy and had given up on ever having children of her own. Now she was going to be a mother whether she liked it or not, and abortion was out of the question. In the other timeline, Jonathan Harris is assimilated into the crew of the Desire and does his best to hide his naval training, including the sailing skills he acquired during his 4 years at the United States Naval Academy. After arriving in New Haven, he received his payout from the Desire's paymaster and takes up residence in New Haven, fully inserting himself into the prevailing social climate. A romance blossoms with a New Haven widow who had been sentenced to a public whipping by a traveling ecclesiastical court chaired by Reverend Peter Pruden, my 10th great-grandfather, and his son-in-law, Reverend Jehu Burr, my 9th great-grandfather, who is also Aaron Burr's great-grandfather. Bethany carries her pregnancy to term and delivers a healthy baby boy, who she names Jonathan Daniel Harris Jr., or JD for short. Perhaps due to exhaustion and a little bit of postpartum depression, her vivid dreams compel her to sell everything, including Jonathan's prized yacht, and move from the Annapolis suburbs to New Haven, Connecticut, where she makes a series of startling discoveries in historical records held by a New Haven church, whose pastor is a descendant of Cotton and Increase Mather. The church and its graveyard proved to be a treasure trove of information about the original Connecticut colony, including some mysterious entries in the captain's log for the Desire, which had been preserved for over 350 years. As Bethany and her hired research team uncover more facts, it turns out that the Reverend Mather has some secrets of his own, hidden in a mysterious crypt below the church's altar, which is where Bethany Harris too disappears. With Bethany's disappearance, the two Harris timelines eventually converge, and the resolution of the story is, as a member of my pre-release team said, unexpected but believable. Over the past few minutes, I've provided the historical context and a very brief overview of the storyline for Of Time and Place, the 9th novel in my Lineage series. There are currently 10 books in the series, and the 11th, Take the Long Way Home, is on the way. A release is planned for sometime in the spring of 2025. For Lineage Independent Publishing, I'm Michael Paul Hurd. Thanks for watching.